All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Self-Publishing Podcast. Expect a lot of fuckery today. We're recording on Zoom right now, which is, we were bitching about Blab. And so we're using Zoom, and we'll see how this works out. It's the solution that we use for our meetings, and it was the solution we used for boot camp, and also for people that are in The Apprentice. But it's very confusing, and Dave wasn't here, and our guest called in at the right time, but we were late, and so that didn't work, and so we told her to call back in 15 minutes. It's the whole thing.
And Zoom has been really like an amazing tool until yesterday when it ate. So Johnny and I recorded 3 different videos yesterday for The Apprentice, and it ate all of them. So we had to do all 3, like 3 different times, and it sucked. And so we're just hoping that this records. And it's weird too, because Christine got on the customer service, and they had no record of us even using the Zoom room at that time. So it just vaporized.
I guess we just need to do our own thing.
I made that joke today.
Yeah, except he made it about Slack when Slack did something weird to me. All right.
Just recreate every tech thing that we need.
That's a good idea.
Just spend all of our money recreating tech that we need, because nobody can do anything right.
I'm pretty sure that
I'm going to reinvent a search engine. This Google shit is just not very good anymore.
Yeah, I was joking with Johnny earlier today because he sent an email, or he answered a question in Slack that I never asked. And I'm like,
Robin actually asked it, but it still didn't show up as her having asked it.
I was like, I have no idea what you're asking me, but yes. And then always start with yes. And then he's like, well, damn it, Slack's not showing me my messages. And I said, Seth needs to build us a Slack because clearly Slack's not working.
So do you want to, can you do the intro on Stacy, Sean? Because I'm just I'm discombobulated, and I feel like you're closer to it. Our guest is going to be Stacy Nelson.
Yeah, Stacy wrote a book called Write the Damn Book, which is a great title. And she's all about finishing. And I know her dirty little secret was that she wrote 15 finished books before she published her first one. And I think there's a lot of writers who can relate to that. And it's really just the idea of, like, sit down, do the work, get it done. I think she deals with a lot of people who, they have their blocks. So it's how do you get over those blocks and sit down and write the book. I know her specialty is nonfiction, but I think that a block is a block, and a lot of that stuff is, transferable.
All right. So who's got something cool?
Well, my something cool is, I think it's actually the same something cool as maybe a couple weeks ago, because I was listening to the Grimace episode while on a walk this morning.
Terrible.
But it's the Apprentice program. Like, we're our first week through. And I think it's cool as we go along the next 8 months to, pull out little nuggets for this stuff. And share with the larger audience. And this first week was just really, really kind of amazing. It's great to see how much interaction there is among the apprentices themselves, and kind of overwhelming, actually. But a big takeaway, and we found ourselves repeating this on all the different tracks, is it's very tempting to take an old idea, and I think this is a good takeaway for everybody. It's really tempting to take an old idea that you have and try to put it in a new context. And I think that we as authors do that a lot of time. And, Johnny, one thing that he kept saying is, if you're making the argument, if I can make the argument that, kind of already lost. And so for us, we're not just the avatars for the Apprentice program, we're doing it ourselves. We're having to follow all the rules ourselves that we're setting. And so it was very tempting to take some old ideas and try to wedge them into the Apprentice program. And we realized that that doesn't serve anybody. And we have to start from scratch and look at the blank canvas and pull new ideas. And so for everyone out there, when you're, trying something new and you're trying to think, how do I write to market? Don't think, well, I could take this thing and maybe if I do this, it's to market. That's not quite the same.
I will take finishing up Resurrection, which is the final book in the Invasion series. And the reason that this is cool for me is because this has been tricky. I mean, anybody who's ever finished a series, I know Dave can sympathize with this. Like, series is kind of like, okay, get all the things together. Remember that thing that you mentioned 3 books ago that was kind of a hurly bird. You got to tie that in and then answer all the questions. And so it's been tricky to kind of pull everything together. And in typical Realmans fans fashion, it did get complicated. And there's some stuff from way back that I'm starting to pull together. And today was the day. And so I've been kind of struggling with it. Like it hasn't been smooth writing. I think it's been good, but it's been I've been banging my head against the wall a lot in terms of getting words out because I'm trying to figure things out as I go. And today was the day where it sort of kind of clicked. And it was like, oh, okay, I can see this happens, then this happens, then this happens. And it's interesting how just having faith earlier in the draft that things were eventually going to have some meaning paid off. Yeah, I mean, it always does. But it's always that leap of faith where like, okay, I hope this works out. And so that was my morning, and that was cool.
Yeah, Dave just finished Available Darkness, and the third book. I
heard about that on this podcast about some walking guy.
And it's it really made me want to read the first 2 books over again. It just had so much closure, and it just felt really complete. And I think the end of a series really, like, if it does that, then it's succeeded. It's not only standing on its own 2 feet. It's this great experience, but it kind of accentuates the experience for all the books in the series.
Anything cool, Dave? You're muted, so that's how it's cool.
Yeah. Okay. So cool. This thing coming up on Netflix, July 15th.
Stranger Things. It's like a cross between the Goonies and Under the Dome.
Yeah, that looks fantastic.
Very retro looking sci-fi sort of series. I'm sure it's going to be awesome. So be on the lookout for that. I don't know if it's really cool or not, but I assume it will be. Netflix doesn't really fuck up their series.
Yeah, I just finished season 4 of Orange is the New Black, and it was awesome. It was really, really good. I enjoyed it.
I've yet to watch that.
I'm ready
all
for
these shows that I have no clue about. I haven't watched that and many other things.
Dave, you'd like Orange is the New Black.
It's like Oz.
Yes, but with women.
Okay. I loved Oz.
Never saw Oz.
If Oz were a book, no, I'm not going to do that. Instead, I'm actually going to give real a real thing. I'm going to give a real thing this week. We actually just finished up a logo for our LOL line, and that is the comedy line that we originally wrote those under Realm and Sands. That was like Dave's favorite space shuttle, but also our funny stuff. And so trying to as we're looking to republish a lot of that stuff and get it back out into the world, we wanted a logo. And so where did we go? Dave, do you have any guesses as to where we might have gone for that logo?
Well, if you're smart, you went to 99designs.com/SPP, our sponsor, and an awesome, awesome place.
That's right. An awesome, awesome place with our sponsor. And if you want to see the results of that, it's sterlingandstone.net/go, as in go/LOL. sterlingandstone.net/go/LOL. And the contest is concluded now, but you can see where it actually links to the voting. I should probably change that. But we ended up with a bunch of I don't remember how many we got, maybe 100 designs, something like that. And then this is the first time I'd been through this, and I think it was 8 designers. I can't remember that I pick, and I said, okay, after the first round, these are the ones I like best, and that advanced the contest to the second round. And then the people who were selected, then most of them added a new versions. They said, okay, you like me enough that I'll give you some new versions of the logos that I already did and try and improve them. And so we then got a second round, a better round of designs. And we then picked one that I thought was a real standout.
And how easy was it?
It was super easy, and we ran polls too. So like at the after I chose the finalists, I ran a poll. You can do this as part of 99designs.com/SPP. And, I said, well, what do you guys like best? And they voted up the one that we already kind of liked. And it's a yellow logo with the O is kind of like the guy's laughing. And I didn't realize this until somebody pointed it out, but it's kind of like, do you know how there's an arrow on FedEx and maybe you don't really notice that their logo has an arrow in it? And you're kind of like, how did I miss that? LOL also is like, it's not just a face, but it's like a guy kind of going like this, like laughing. And I didn't realize that until somebody pointed it out, and it's super cool because the L's go toward the.
Yeah, it is a cool logo, and I'm looking forward to when we get the new site going. We're gonna have merchandise, and Dave's working on an "I Hate You All" shirt. We've already got a "Put a Unicorn in It" design, and I think we're gonna use 99 Designs to do some more merchandise for you guys, like what things that I think when you die you die with an M dash is one of the.
Oh, they don't get that. That's mine.
All right. Well, I think we're gonna at some point when we launch the site do some poll for you guys. You decide what slogan we'll take to 99 Designs, and we'll do a contest and make a deal out of it, and it'll be fun.
So anyway, and then I did do another round because the finalists that we liked the best, there were two slightly different designs. One with like it had bevels on the L's, and then one had an underline. And I sent that out to everybody and sent it out to Facebook and sent the link and said, what do you guys like it better with the outline, without the outline, with the bevels? And that helped us narrow it down too. And I just finished it off. It was my first time doing a contest because Dave's always handled them, and it was super easy. So that's 99designs.com/SPP, book covers, logos, all that stuff. So again, if you use the /SPP link, you get the free Power Pack upgrade, which gets you more designs, and that is important. More choices, basically. So good things to say about that. So I guess we'll just sort of hang out and wait for Stacy. You already gave the intro on her, so we'll just kind of.
I'm here.
Oh, I don't see you in the top. All right, good. Look at that. Anybody can call in and start.
I have so many skills. I'm invisible. I can speak like a man and a British
she's
person.
Like a ninja. This is awesome.
I know, right?
You had to listen to the sincere ad read this time.
Yeah, I'm not sure how I feel about the sincere ad read. I like it better when we're talking about ayahuasca and Hitler, but to each his own.
Right, absolutely.
So welcome, Stacy.
Thank you for having me.
So like I know your specialty is kind of dealing with nonfiction here, right? But I believe that, really anything you would have to say would have to do for fiction writers too, because a block is a block. And I know that your dirty little secret is that you wrote 15 books before you published even one. So do you want to talk to that at all?
Now she's gone.
We can't even tell when she's gone either because it's invisible.
Okay, I'm back.
Oh,
okay.
Yeah. Just in time to miss everything I said, right?
Can you hear me?
I missed everything you
Hello.
said, but I'm sure it was really flattering.
Awesome. Well, I was just talking about how I know you published 15 books before, or actually you wrote 15 books before you even published one, right?
Yes.
And do you want to talk about that block, what it was that actually got you to, finally write the damn book?
Oh, holy shit. Yeah. I think, I remember as a kid, and I'm not even going to include this book as one of the 15, but as a kid, I used to have one of those old typewriters, and this is how old I am. I have an actual manual typewriter. And I got it in my mind one day that I wanted to be an author. And so I took out my copy of Alice in Wonderland because it's such an incredibly visual book, which, many other things can be said about that book. But as a kid, it was a very descriptive, beautiful book that brought you into an entirely different world. And I would sit there and I'd go clank, 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 clank at the keys. And I was a terrible typist, so there was lots of crosses and none of the lines matched up. But it was me sitting there pretending to write Alice in Wonderland. And I usually get about, 3/4 of a page and be like, oh God, this is hard work. And then I would move on to whatever next thing I wanted to do.
And this was before Twitter.
Yeah. This is just, 3/4 of a page and I was done. So, I think that pretty much says all of it. Writing and actually finishing the book is the part that was always really hard for me. You know, starting shit is great. Like, I could start all kinds of things. I could start fights in bars. I could start books. I could start, you know, businesses. But actually following through to the end, that was the part that was the toughest for me. So, yeah, I did. I started 15 books, and they were all at various stages of completion. But something would always sort of at that last second be like, holy shit, I can't put this out in the world. And who am I to? And gosh, you know, a year from now, this isn't even going to be my point of view, because everything that I had written was nonfiction and still is. But yeah, I think honestly, I had a finishing issue. And so there was always that point when I'm like, God, this damn book, I just got to finish the damn book, and I never do. So at one point that changed, and my first 2 books were published within 3 weeks of each other.
Oh, wow.
So what's the secret?
It's almost like ripping duct tape off your mouth. There's this point where it becomes, right? Yeah, that's kind of what it felt like, or a really good wax job. You know, there just becomes a point where if your message is just a part of who you are, you just can't hold it back anymore. And energetically, you know, for me, it's all about energy. And every time you have an incompletion in your life, there's energy that's held around it. So by sitting there and having like these 15 books that I hadn't finished, I was always that person who's going to write a book someday. And I was putting in all my energy into being like that person who maybe someday would write a book. And when I just released all of that and finished one, it was like all of that energy I had that was wrapped up in the incompletion became like, holy fuck, I'm an author. This feels so much better. To be on the other side.
Like Johnny's first, you know, it took him 12 years to get the first book out there, and then, you know, like 10 the next year.
Although to be fair, that was that was the old model where I couldn't publish it.
Right, but it's so much like pulling out the cork. Like you could just, okay, well now it's go time, right? Now this can't be done. You know, it's like if you think you can't run, but then all of a sudden, you know, you run a block and a block and a block, and then all of a sudden running feels natural. Then it's not painful to go out and start. Except for David, it'll probably always be painful for David.
Well, yeah, it's like putting an air back in a balloon. It's just not going to work.
Right. So what kind of parallels do you see between, I know nonfiction is your sweet spot, but what parallels are there between fiction and nonfiction? I think some of the doubts are probably the same. Like, am I good enough to be, you know, am I good enough to be teaching? Am I good enough to be entertaining?
Yeah, exactly. You know, I think that any sentence that begins with "who am I to," pretty much says it all. Like, who am I to be writing this? Who am I to be an authority of this? Who am I to actually have a book? Who am I to tell anyone how to live? And it's that same thing of like, who am I to be entertaining? Who am I to be a good storyteller? Who am I to, you know, you fill in the blank. It's all of the self-doubt, and it all gets exposed. With that additional thing. Yeah, right? Like, it's all like you're sitting there naked waiting for people to go, oh, nice rolls, baby.
Dave does that a lot. That's how he finishes books.
Yeah. You know, it's very, it really is taking you down, whether it's the story that you want to be told, or, you know, that lesson that you want to teach the world, or whatever it is that you're bringing out into the world in that book. It really is very vulnerable. And I think that for me and for my clients, like the one thing I say, it's like, okay, writing this book really is one of the deepest, one of the best methods of self-development that you could ever do, because you got to face not only all of that fear of visibility, the fear of judgment, self-judgment, and external judgment, but you also have to be so clear about your message and be willing to put that stake in the ground. And it's the same with fiction, to be willing to be so committed to the story and the character and the world that you're creating, that this is the line. So it forces you to be really clear and really just powerful. And so you're going from who the fuck am I to like, this is my stake in the ground. And you're constantly sort of waving between the two. So I think it's an amazing self-growth, regardless of the genre, regardless of what you're writing.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with that more. I think that, especially for the three of us, that's the kind of fiction that we always choose to write. Even when we're writing something to market, it's very important for us to kind of self-explore. Dave is always exploring like really dark stuff. He wrestles his fears. The joke is that he loves children and Jeopardy and all of this stuff because that's what terrifies him. And so it's like looking in the dark side of the mirror. And everything that we write, at Realm and Sands with Johnny and I, we call it inquisitive fiction. That's exactly what it does, because it's like the deeper you go into the questions, the more interesting those questions get. And that's why we try to balance between being artists and business people, but it's those questions that drive our art and keep us more on the artistic side, at least when it comes to the fiction. Like we definitely, we're not just creating a commodity. We are trying to build to our legacy and understand who we are as people. And it drives our art, and then the art drives us.
Yeah, it informs each other, right? I mean, because it's like you really do bleed a little bit of your soul into every page if you're doing it right. I'm sure that there are many authors in the world that just, go out for the product. But if you're really interested in creating a quality product, one that will have exactly that legacy, like you're talking about, that will be read many, many years from now, then there has to be something in there that's a little piece of you, because that's that little thing that dials it up just that much more to turn it in from like, that was okay, to wow, that was really great. Like I felt that book.
So
right.
how do you know the difference? Because there's a fear you have early on, and this fear really never goes away for me anyway, that what you're writing isn't good enough. So how do you distinguish between, okay, I'm not really good enough yet and this should wait, versus, okay, I am good enough, I should just continue? How do you recognize, the difference between fear and a valid self-critique?
Like if it's actually shit, or if it's just your mind playing with you.
Yes.
Gosh, there's so many ways I could answer that, but I think, that the fear is I think it's always going to be there. And I think it comes up in every project and in so many other areas, not even just writing, just those fears of, am I good enough? For me, for nonfiction, for the people that I work with, that nonfiction genre, part of it is like, it's so much a part of our journey, and our journey really doesn't end until we die. And so to imagine that you will ever be ready.
That's sexy talk for Dave.
Like that is like the worst lie that you could ever tell yourself. Like, I'll be ready for this someday. Well, that's bullshit. You'll never really be ready. So speak from where you're at right now. And I think one of the things that really helped me was to stop writing for other people. And actually, I started writing the books for myself. You know, I've got several books in process right now, and it's like just that shift, that mindset of like, if only one person reads it, that's fine. And I know that's, you know, taking that business aspect out, but during the creative process, it's sort of like, okay, I need to write this for me. What did I need to hear at this stage in my life? What are the lessons that would have dramatically changed the trajectory of where I was going, and really understanding that this is the book that I needed to read, and this is my voice, and I write it more from that aspect. And when you're writing for yourself, it doesn't matter if it's good enough or not, because it's actually coming out from the soul. Once that's done, then that's when you bring in, you know, a creative editor or, you know, other people that can go, okay, what's in here? And I go through a full read through after I've written it for myself. And then I start to seed it with the things, you know, where I want the readers to go and the places that I want to take them from both a business standpoint and, you know, a journey standpoint.
So that's like Stephen King's writing with the door closed, right? That's what the first draft is for. Don't let anybody in the room. That's totally for you. And then, you know, after that draft is done, then you can kind of open the door and think, okay, now other people are going to read this. Because otherwise you're filtered, right? You're self-editing, and self-editing isn't, I don't know, it's an impediment. But also, do you think that I'm sorry, go ahead, Stacy.
Well, I was just going to say, I mean, my favorite quote is the Hemingway quote, and it's write drunk, edit sober. Mm-hmm. And that's it. It's like you just write it, and then you go back and you go, okay, well, let's rephrase this, and let's reframe this, and let's, you know, create purpose with it, and really go from there. But it's that moment where if you are self-editing as you write, you're going to sound like a jackass, no matter what, because your voice will always come out wrong.
Yeah, and I think that's true too. I think that it's, you know, it's writing is rewriting, and when you're writing, when you self-edit, it doesn't sound natural. It sounds stilted. It sounds like
a jackass.
Right. It doesn't have. It doesn't have the right rhythm. Like if you get it out of your system and then you go back and you tighten it, that's different than editing it sentence by sentence, which you go slower and end up with inferior work. But I think another thing that tends to really hold people back is that they don't understand. They're looking at what the masters are doing and assuming that it's just, I can never do that. And not understanding that this isn't, no artist ever does it perfect. There's no musician that is like, okay, now I'm perfect. Now I've learned everything there is to know. There's no painter, there's no filmmaker, there's no writer. We're always learning new things. And you're looking at other people who are they've just done more hours than you. They've just put more layers in than you. They have more experience than you, and you can't compare yourself to that. You have to compare yourself to where you were yesterday and where you want to be tomorrow.
Yeah, if you consider somebody like Clive Barker, you're finding his works, you know, the middle or end of his, well, not end, but the middle of his journey. He's already. Oh,
I'm going to tell me you said that.
Well, who knows? You know, we can all die tomorrow.
I probably will, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's a journey, right? Our lives are a journey, and you know, we will never really be good enough to, you know, create the penultimate book, like the book, and with great big capital letters and like, you know, and maybe we will write that book, but if we set out to write that book, that's when the doubts come in. Like, holy shit, how am I going to write the book? Versus like, I'm just going to write the book. You know, if you decapitalize it, it's a little bit easier to swallow.
Well, so the road to hell is kind of paved with works in progress,
Capital.
Right? Yeah. How do you know when? Okay, here's a book, and it's done, it's written, I've sent it to my editor. I feel like it's 80% of the way there. I'm kind of embarrassed to put my name on it, but I know that I'm not going to grow as a writer if I don't ship. I just need to finally ship this. Would you suggest using a pen name or just getting over it and doing it yourself and growing the next one?
Yeah, I don't know. I know you guys love your pen names. And I could see the romance in that for you know, it was interesting because I was talking to a friend the other day, and is a mutual friend. He's a publisher, and he's like, you have no idea how much pressure I have to write, like, you know, the perfect book, because everyone expects really great things out of me because I'm a publisher. And I'm like, well, do other people really expect great things out of you, or is it you? Because those are different questions, you know, and those are different responses, because ultimately, who the fuck cares what other people are going to say about you? When you've created the community and you've created those relationships, and this book comes out, they're going to support you whether it's shit or not. What happens is we expect a different response from people. We expect people to be like, oh my God, I'm never talking to them again. And you know, when you're in that, of course I wouldn't put my name on it. And yet there is that moment of experimentation. It's, you know, it's like, you know, going to a bar and pretending, you know, and role playing with someone. There's an excitement in that too. So I think it really just depends on what your ultimate goal is. If your ultimate goal is to just rip the Band-Aid and you just want to write that first book and you don't care if your friends and family know you're an author, then great, do the pen name. For me, especially being in nonfiction, it's really important that my name is there because my name is my brand.
Yeah, so I'm sorry, go ahead, Johnny.
Well, I was going to ask something different, but if you were going to say something about that name.
No. Yeah. No, by all means.
Well, I'm just looking from the 30,000 foot view, and we've talked a lot about like what, you know, the mentality that goes into finishing and all this stuff. But I'm wondering what specific advice you would offer yourself before, you know, when you had these 15 and you hadn't finished the books. Like, okay, I get it. But I can't finish the damn book. You know what I mean? Like I can't get through it. What are like on the ground sort of suggestions you would give for somebody in that position?
Yeah, you know, it's interesting because I have such a different attitude to my writing at this point where I know that some books just aren't quite right yet. I'm in the middle of one right now that's just sort of been sitting in the sidelines for a while. And I'm so glad that it was sitting in the sidelines because I was about 137 pages into the writing. And I went back and I really looked at it and realized that there were a couple of big directional changes that book needed to take based on where I am now versus where I started it. And I actually deleted about half the book and redid my map for it. And now the book is coming out very, very fast. So I think there's a couple of things that I would have asked myself earlier on is there something specifically that needs to be restructured in this book and you just can't see it yet, so you're putting it on pause? Or are you writing it for the wrong reasons? I think a lot of those 15 books were written from a very strategic standpoint for me, or were written just because I like to write. I mean, I've always written, and they really didn't have a purpose. And so they were either purposeless or they were contrived, or there were things in there. And actually in my second book, I actually went through those last 15 books and I pulled out the stories from them that were really relevant to the story that I was actually writing. So it's like, you know, I kind of cannibalized some of those books because they weren't quite right and I could create it and make it right. So those are the three things that I'm able to look at now as I'm writing. Like, okay, is this purposeless? Is it contrived? Or is there something missing that I can actually like marinate on and create something really magical from?
It sounds to me like you're saying know your why, which is
Ooh.
Sean.
That's next up for me.
But I mean, it does sound that way. It's like knowing, like, what is the reason for writing the book rather than just directionless, or I don't really know, or because my parents thought I should write a book or something like that.
Right. Like, when everyone's saying like, hey, you should write a book, you go, yeah, all right, motherfucker, sit down. Oh my gosh, did I say that out loud? I'm sorry. I'll just, pop a book out of my butt.
How dare
No
you
problem.
use such salty language?
Wait, I'm trying to understand why saying motherfucker was bad when you've sworn quite a few times.
I have.
That was the worst
the first
one.
time I noticed it. Yeah, that was the worst one. I apologize for all the others on the line.
You can do the drinking game when you listen back to this.
I think there's something too about what you're saying between, basically going back to your prior books and mining them, to get new material.
Yeah.
Because there's a difference between ideas and articulation. And I think early on, your ideas probably are really similar, right? Of course, you think slightly different as time goes on, and you may have other sides to your perspective for sure. But there's also that basic, these were my ideas and I didn't quite know how to express them. I didn't quite know how to get all the angles there. And, a few years later, you can go back and take the same ideas and present them in a new, unique way that makes you seem like a genius that you may have missed the first time.
It's a little like if your writing program eats your first draft, or Sean and I had to re-record a meeting 3 times yesterday that we were doing for the apprentices because Zoom kept crapping. But by the third time, it was like, it was real fluid. Like it came out really well because we'd had all that practice.
Yeah.
That writing can be like that.
Writing can be like that. I found that I was actually quite a content hoarder. And I found that a lot of people that I work with are actually content hoarders as well. In that we are in our lives creating content every single day. I saw some quote the other day that said something to the effect of like, be careful what you talk about in front of an author because it'll probably turn into their next book.
That's very true.
So
or for Dave,
we're literally
what news he watches.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, we're actually creating content all of the time. And if you're naturally a writer, you're creating even more content. I had years and years of journals. I had those 15 books. I had, at least my current blogs, I've just put things on there for years. Facebook. Every post that I do on Facebook is content. Every session I do, a coaching session I do with clients, that's content. It is all content. We are producing content or experiencing stories every moment of our life. And what happened is like, for years and years, I was hoarding that content, even though I was sharing it once or, putting it out into the world. By being able to go back into that content and repurposing it and really creating something more coherent with the threads that were in there by placing it into a book, I ceased to be that hoarder. And it was like all of a sudden space opened up. And then once space opens up, it's like, oh gosh, okay, now I can do that again because the space feels really good.
So what are some of the tools you use to collect these bits and scraps that you'll eventually use for stories? Do you use Evernote or other stuff?
For me, you know what? It's interesting. I do most of my, I find that most of my like really brilliant ideas tend to come from Facebook posts. Which just sounds absolutely insane, but like I'll wake up and it's almost like a journal and I'll just write whatever comes to me. And then my assistant actually stalks me. She goes into my Facebook and into the groups that I run and the communities that I'm a part of. I make sure that she's a part of it all with me. And she actually collects everything that I write online. And she takes that and she puts it into my blog. So I don't even really have to write blog posts. She also takes my newsletters and puts that into my blog. And then she actually puts it all like once a month. She puts it all into a Word document that I print out and stick in a folder.
Oh, that's really awesome. Do you want to share your Facebook or your blog? I bet a lot of people listening would like to see that.
Yeah, I use my personal Facebook for most of my writing, and it's just, I think it's Stacy Nelson 1, but my blog is found on StacyNelsonUnlimited.com. And
is there a Stacy Nelson Limited?
Unlimited. You know what? No, they're just not as cool. If they're limited, they're just not as cool as unlimited. And actually, that's my URL because some jackass, I'll swear again, has actually owned Stacy Nelson Unlimited for the last 10 years and keeps trying to sell it to me for thousands of dollars. So,
fuck that guy.
I know, right? What's up with that?
and then
so, yeah.
Your book site, I like how I'm saying you because you don't know your own website. But for everybody else, writingthedamnbook.com is most relevant.
Yeah. And that's where my repository for my writing adventures and my way of writing. I mean, I definitely not an encyclopedic compendium of writing like you guys have put together, but it is just very like, just write the damn book. Because there's nothing quite like actually completing the book, even though starting feels so good.
How much of stalling out do you think comes down to, the writer's block sorts of things versus maybe a sense of imposter syndrome where like familiarity with the topic, like, well, this is a topic I know really well, so of course I can write about this, but this is something where I don't know if I feel like I'm an authority or, I'm thinking you'd hang up a lot on that, especially with nonfiction or fiction. If you just, I don't think I'm a good writer, so that counts as unfamiliarity with the topic.
Yeah. It's interesting. I think writer's block just means that something is off. I don't think that writer's block is like anything other than something's out of alignment and it becomes a mystery for you to figure out what needs to shift. However, the imposter syndrome stops us more than anything else. Just that, not feeling like you're a very good author. And quite frankly, everyone's always told me what a great writer I am. And all of that was fine, but I didn't really believe it. I think it was the second book. We'd gone through all the edits and, it was all ready to go. And we were sitting there at the final read through. And it was the first time, when you're writing the book, you're sort of in the forest and you're in it and you're rereading that same line over and over and over again. But it was like, I took that, you talk about the view from above. It was that final read through and I sat down and I actually, got a cup of tea and decided to read the whole thing through. And I started crying because it was like, holy shit, I had no idea that this was actually good. Like I was writing with that imposter syndrome through the whole thing, but in that final read through, I was like, wow, this is actually pretty good. And I was like, why didn't you guys tell me? I was telling my team, like, why didn't you guys tell me? And they're like, we've been telling you the whole time that it was excellent. Why weren't you hearing it? I'm like, well, because I was stuck in that I hope this is good enough stage. And those are those moments where it's like, at some point, you got to step back and actually just be the reader. Because when you're the reader, it's very different from being the writer.
Yeah, that's very true. Do you see with all the people that you've worked with who are, finally finishing their damn books, do you see a common denominator? Like there's one thing that you can say is 100% true. Like if somebody is not finishing the book, this is at least very likely the cause.
Yeah, it's either completely not the right book for them to be writing, right? Like it's either like those three things. It's either got no purpose or it's contrived. because nobody really sets out to write a contrived book or to write a purposeless book, or they're legitimately blocking themselves. And that's where, for me, it's like, you know, being able to pull out that coach thing and be like, okay, well, what's going on emotionally? Like there's something that comes up. And actually, most of the time, it's the visibility piece that's the scariest. You know, actually having to own the work, own the message, own the stories, own that there's something like oddly permanent about writing a book, even though, you know, you could take it off the market, you can rewrite it, you could do anything you want to when you publish the way we publish. But there's something about that visibility and that permanence that tends to be the piece that freaks them out the most.
What do you do if your partner is 4 months late on a draft?
You give him all the time he needs to make genius.
I was listening to The Walking Dave today where Dave says he's going to take a week off, and I wondered if he cleared that with Sean.
Oh, I didn't care.
I love Dave.
You know, you can fire him and start a new project.
There you go. Fire me, Sean.
Mistress.
Yeah, take another mistress.
No, I have plenty. I'm exhausted all the time.
Yeah, I'm gonna say active waiting comes to mind right there. Like, okay, I'll wait for you, and I'll do my active shit over here. You do what you need to do.
Yeah,
that's there was another one. I just had to drink another shot.
You're gonna be so drunk.
Yeah, and by the way,
oh my
jackass
gosh,
is a bad word.
Oh my gosh, that's great. Jackass.
So I would say tell everybody to get writing the damn book, but I see that it's coming soon. Do you have a release date?
Yeah, we're in that final development state, so it'll probably be out within the next 2 weeks. We had some design snafus in that the designer sort of left and came back. So my bad for mismanaging the project, but so it should be out in a couple weeks. But I do have a free 5-day video course if anyone wants to sign up for that and wait, and then they'll get first notification when that book comes out. It's a pretty short read.
Where would they find that, Stacy?
writingthedamnbook.com.
There you go, writingthedamnbook.com, and you can sign up and get the free stuff, and also know when it comes out. And your website as a whole is Stacy Nelson Unlimited. Let's be clear about that. .com. And anything else that you want to tell people about? No, I am so grateful to be here, and especially grateful to learn that jackass isn't a swear word. Yes, it is not.
Motherfucker is, though, so don't confuse those two.
Right.
What about a jackass motherfucker?
Stacy, make sure you let us know when just drop us an email when the book comes out, so we can tell our people, because I think they'll.
I will. Yeah, I will. And, fingers and toes crossed that all of my project management skills are actually on par now.
If not, you'll just do some active waiting.
I've been active waiting for a little while, and I'm kind of over it, and I need to publish the damn book. So
I really like the phrase active waiting, and I think I'm going to adopt it.
Of course you will.
You go for it.
Dave's going to pitch you on that every time a draft is late.
You go. You active wait now.
I'm gonna actively hate you.
I'm going to actively hate you.
Yeah. Sandra Ann in the comments says every writer alive needs to hear this podcast episode. So many keys. So I think you are loved.
Wow, thank you so much. That made me feel warm and fuzzy, swearing aside.
They felt warm and fuzzy back in 1993.
Once. It was 94. Get it right.
Sorry. Oh, that's when Cobain died.
Yes.
I thought that was the ayahuasca and Hitler. I'm sorry. I misunderstood.
Those are much later.
All right, everybody. So we'll wrap up. So thanks to Stacy for being here. Again, writingthedamnbook.com and her site, StacyNelsonUnlimited.com. Writing the Damn Book is not out quite yet, but it should be out soon. So make sure you get it on our list. And just everybody, thanks for listening. and we will see y'all next time.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye, everybody.